And I carried that plant home with me, and it's growing, and I'm organizing a leadership camp in May, and I'm going to get to give my seedlings to the people that I mentor in that. So how beautiful is that? So thank you, Linda, and thank you to all the VOW members. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Linda, could you just stand up so people can see the longtime peace activist from Canada? Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome to the podium Yusur Al-Barani from the province of Ontario, and you will hear about yet another way of doing the Peace Camp model. Yusur.
Well, hi everyone, and thanks for coming. Women political empowerment is very, very important. Oh. Okay. Everyone can hear me now? So women political empowerment is very, very important and is crucial. And as a feminist woman activist and as a journalist as well, there is no doubt that I am always very concerned about women empowerment, whether it is in the political arena or any other aspect of life, be it domestic, social, professional, whatever you can think of. I want to see women political leaders in all over the world, and this would really make me happy. However, what concerns me more is whether those women in leading positions are going to defend women's rights. Are they going to defend feminism if they are being elected? Are they going to work for peace? Or will they be replications of the existing system of patriarchy, hierarchy, and sexism that we see every day? So the goal here is not only women empowerment, but also empowering women to be leaders of peace and feminism and be always advocates of women's rights all the time. So in order to make sure that we as women leaders adhere to the core values of peace and feminism, we need to always educate ourselves. Every day is a learning experience, and I say this as a journalist. I need to seek stories that help empower women, and those women at the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace, they are really inspiring me every single day in seeking those stories and hunting for those stories, and in reporting about stories that seek to abolish the culture of war and so on, even though those stories are not mainstream stories, not at all. So yeah, thanks for VOW. You have always been inspiring me, every single one of you. Saying this, the goal here is to educate ourselves, to share our experiences with each other. It is a two-way process. We learn in circles, and we dance in circles. Well, we do everything in circles. There's no hierarchy. And by the way, the setting here really bothers me a lot. I just don't like it. Yeah, really. I love to be in circles. I'm just like, I feel irritated. And this is leading me to share with you some reflections from our VOW summer camp experience in Ontario, which has been, I've been there 2 years, and it has been just fantastic. And I believe that we can have the same experience in all over the world, and women in all over the world can adjust that based on however they can or whatever the circumstances in the different countries are. We cannot have replications, but we can just take the models maybe. The camp, and in this case the VOW Summer Peace Camp, it was a safe and it's still a safe environment. Hopefully we're gonna have another one this summer. The camp was a safe environment for the young women who participated, and as I said, we were all the time in circles, and you can see this in the photos. So women in the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace, they make up one circle of peace. Like, I can't really stress that more than this. So here how things work. There have never been any hierarchies in the camp, and even in the experience that we are having every single day with each other. But there are people with different experiences and skills, and that's what really happens. The people with the different experiences and skills are gonna teach the other people, and so on. So here, how things go at the Vow Peace Camp. There are many women coming together, and the participants are, let me say, the campers in this case. They are mainly youth. However, since our membership is very, very diverse, so we can see that the facilitators and other members also come from different age groups. So there is that very beautiful mosaic of wisdom and youthfulness at the same time. It is just amazing and inspiring. And that's really the beauty of it. During the days in which we camp, we get to have several workshops on peace building, taking into consideration, of course, feminism and women's rights as our core values, and that's how we do it. We had lots of workshops, and most of them were conflict resolution workshops. I gave a workshop on Twitter and social media, and the image that was, this one was it during the peace, the International Peace Day, and one of our leading members, Tiffany, who's unfortunately not here, she helped a lot, and it was her initiative to organize this, which I think was just awesome. And coming out from last year's camp experience, it has really inspired me to take a step forward and to meet women from Syria. And in this picture, you can see that I'm with Mother Agnes, who is really an amazing person doing reconciliation and peace work in Syria without any political affiliation, because we really need the Syrian women to speak up. There has not been a lot, and most of the solutions suggested they're just political. So the experience of the camp just inspired me to seek this. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Yusur. Very much appreciate your respecting the time. Some of you picked up green cards that were handed when you came in. We have handed those out because we want to welcome you to share information that you'd like us to have, or if you want to put a question and have it brought up to the front so it can be read clearly with the mic, we're happy to do that. When we get to the open discussion, you'll also be able to speak from the audience. We'll get the mic to you as quickly as we can. I'd now like to introduce our next panelists from the west coast of Canada, from British Columbia. I'd like to welcome Tabby Pratt.
Thank you, Mary Lou. I'm going to put my timer on as well. Okay, thanks. Okay, so yes, I'm Tabby Pratt, and I've spent several years in Brazil, and for my thesis work and research, I was doing a lot of research with youth from slum areas of Brazil and looking at the way that violence affected them and peace-building techniques and approaches and action that they were engaged in. So while there, I did a community needs assessment with a team of researchers, and we set up a grassroots youth project. There was a lot of input from the youth, and our whole directing board was made up of women. Next slide. So project partners in Brazil, amazing women, so inspiring, that had been there for a very long time working with the community and were really helpful in accessing a lot of the participants. So we led a lot of empowerment through skills building and arts and peace building and peace education workshops. And so there's some of that in action. So we have a strong participant base of active youth that seems to be growing and growing. Weekly, more and more youth are coming, so it's very exciting. So I went to a peace leadership camp in Harrop, BC, on the west coast of Canada. It was a 4-day camp, and it included workshops and inspiring presenters in activism, politics, arts, and creative expression. Here we have a picture of the 1325 play for women, for encouraging women as equal participants in all decisions in war and peace, and as well art therapy, Teresa on the right there. So we did a lot of that as well. So yes, we generated a lot of connection and community as you can see here in the pictures. Next slide. So also we shared a lot of experiences, and as you sir said, I also very much feel more comfortable in circles, and that's what we also promoted at the camp. And there was a lot of circles, and sharing just the flow of energy and equality was there. So we had amazing speakers come. Michelle Mungal is our local MLA, and she came and shared stories about her experience as a young woman in politics, and it was very insightful and encouraging for her to talk about some of the things that she had dealt with and how she was dealing with those. And Madeleine McKay has been an amazing pillar of support and ongoing support since I met her at the Peace Camp. She's been in my community. I had met her before, but we really made a connection at the Peace Camp, and she's been infinitely supportive of our work in Brazil and the work to come through the Peace Camp as well. So she's so amazing. Anyway. And so the Peace Camp follow-ups, after the Peace Camp was over, we talked about in follow-ups with Madeleine McKay and also some of the young participants at the camp. We talked about expanding the Brazilian project to Canada and to connect youth internationally. So we showed that we did a documentary as part of my research in Brazil, and so we showed that documentary to the youth in Canada. Within that was a lot of information about youth telling their stories about their experiences with violence and their resilience and transcendence of personal and social challenges through the arts. So it's really in their voice. So it inspired the youth in Canada to create a parallel documentary doing essentially the same thing, talking about issues of youth violence in their community that is not really addressed, and to increase awareness and support. Also, youth leadership and international collaboration has come out of those follow-up talks and through our project, as well as fundraising initiatives, especially by the youth in Canada for the youth in Brazil, which really engages the youth in Brazil as well, and travel opportunities within our province and to Brazil for the youth. So since the camp, we have had a lot of youth participation through youth who came to the camp and really talking to the community about the project. So we have province-wide participation in Canada at this point: Victoria, BC, Nelson, BC, also Vancouver, BC. We have youth from drama students, graffiti artists, break dancers, folk dancers, singers, songwriters, ballet dancers. We're all using art to spread awareness about youth violence and end and prevent violence, both locally at a provincial level and globally. So our project has become, I don't know what the light. Okay, our project is called the Youth Change Exchange. There are some business cards up here, which also have the links where you can see the documentary from the youth in Brazil. We'll also be putting the Canadian documentary on the website as well when that's finished. And so it's a cross-cultural youth-led empowerment project to end and prevent violence through the arts, education, mobilization for change. We define violence as harm toward ourselves, toward another, including harmful attitudes towards others, and harm toward our environment. So we're changing our inner and outer world, creating peace in ourselves, in our local and global communities. Continue? Not yet. Okay, thank you. Okay, so a peace leadership camp in Brazil. So we are going to create a VOW Peace Leadership Camp in Brazil. Very excited about it. Which some of the core aims in this peace leadership camp will be to support young women in Brazil to speak out about the ways that violence is affecting them in their lives, because there is a lot of growing awareness about how it's affecting boys, especially because there's a huge gun culture there. Boys are killing each other. It's a bloodbath, basically, in some areas. And we want to talk more about highlighting the experience for the girls and how those situations of violence are translating in their lives. So also developing and implementing effective peace-building strategies in their communities. And I will continue in a few moments. Thanks.
Tabo, thank you so much. So now we've reached the point in our program where we want to begin the intergenerational dialogue. Our co-sponsors that are with us, Betty Reardon, Cora Weiss.
I'm not so sorry about it either, because I see in you that lots that we have struggled for through the years goes on and becomes much more integrated into your lives. And I see that what you all are doing is taking these peacemaking impulses into communities where they become part of the communities and part of the consciousness of the communities. So I thank you very much for that, because it gives me great hope. But I do have a thought that I think is important. This is just the beginning. You know, you've only started. And why I'm hopeful is I think you're hooked. But it's a long, long journey. But it can be a very rich journey. In that journey, your task is to remake the world. You can do it. You're feminists, for heaven's sake. And so the notion that we have to remake the world, we have to build new institutions as well as change relationships. What you've been talking about is very much in the area of how do we change the way people think and relate to each other. And when they're thinking and relating to each other in another way, then they can begin to build anew, build the kinds of institutions which will make it possible. So I would ask you to think about how the work that you're doing connects specifically and substantively to what Janice was saying about demilitarization and disarmament. What does global disarmament have to do with youth violence in Brazil? What does demilitarization have to do with the position of women in policy making? So there are many, many questions that you could start to raise about the next phase. And with every phase you get into, there are new questions. And it's the questions that really are the inspiration to carry you forward. Because if there's a question, then there means there's a possibility.
There was nothing old about that. Betty Reardon is an icon for women and for peace. Do you know what icons are?
I know. I spent lots of time in the Western Church.
This has been so terrific. You are such inspiring women. Radio programs in New York. It was early 70s. And I would have you on the air if you were a woman. I didn't care what else you did. And my producer called one day and said to my husband on the telephone, "Tell Cora that my wife just delivered a woman." So you're women, and it's just terrific. And I love the idea of a South moving, inspiring a North institutionally. That is so, you have no idea, do you have an idea of how important it is that the North can learn from the South? Hooray, right? I mean, every one of you just gave terrific examples of uniqueness. I mean, you're taking things that we worked on for the last, when somebody said a half century, I mean, I was in it before then. But you have molded the idea and the, I don't want to use the word cause, the